read books in whatever order you want. You don't want to burn yourself out. I do that all the time. I just don't want to put myself in a reading slump. This is me trying to justify to myself that I am totally in the right for starting new series instead of finishing my old ones, okay? I've been trying to get this camera angle right for like a while, and I don't even know if it's any good. Hello everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. I am in Reno for Thanksgiving. Yeah, I'm in my dad's car because it's very loud in the house. I love Thanksgiving. This is like the only time of year that all my extended family gets together, so it's pretty fun. Welcome to today's video. I'm very excited for this one. I am going to be reading the first book in a couple of series and letting you guys know what I'm thinking. Don't get me wrong, I have so many series that I'm in the middle of. Actually, it's not that many. It's like 8. I'm only in the middle of 8. I'm only in the middle of 8 series. Can I get myself to finish those books? Absolutely not. What am I gonna do instead? I am going to start some new series. I have so many series that I want to start. Like, I could do so many reiterations of this video because there are just so many great series that I've heard of that I want to read so badly. And then who knows, maybe we'll get a couple videos of like, let's finish a series because I have so many of those as well. That being said, I have 3 different books, 3 different genres of books that I picked out and I brought with me. I'm not really in the mood for anything specific. I've been reading like murder mysteries recently, so let me show you what we've got going. So, first book I've got is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher, which is the first book of the Dreamland Billionaire trilogy. It is an adult romance. I think the cover is sick. I've heard so many great things about this series. Ow. Ow. The next book I have is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I've heard so many great things about this book. And then the third book that I have is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I've had this book for a long time. I read it once years and years and years ago, and I do not remember almost anything about it. And I'm really excited to get to this book because I want to read The Ballad of Never After. The other series, she just finished the other trilogy recently, A Curse for True Love. That's the third book in the other trilogy I'm talking about. But I heard that you have to read this trilogy before you get to that one, and I really want to read that one, so I'm going to read this one. I remember really liking this one when I read it. I just don't remember much about it. This is a young adult fantasy book. I have no idea what I was going to start with, so before I went out here to record, I took a little survey of my family, and they said I should read the murder mystery, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. Again, this is the first book in a trilogy. I believe this is about a girl who reopens a cold case from her town for a school project. I'm really excited to dive in. It's pretty short. I think I could get through it. I don't know how busy we're gonna be here, but I can't imagine we're gonna be too busy, so I'm sure I'm gonna have plenty of time to get to it. Hopefully get to all 3 of these books. I've got a 10-hour drive back home. I'm not the one driving, so I'm sure I'm gonna be able to get through these books. Let's get reading. Nothing is more humbling than like bringing a bunch of books to read on vacation and then not finishing a single one of those books. I do it every time. I'll be like, oh, 1 book's not enough. Like, I want to read more than 1 book. And then I end up having like 3 or 4 or 5, and I don't read any. Anyway, I did start reading A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I am 158 pages in. I'm on chapter 17. Okay. I went into this, I was like, oh, it's like a young adult murder mystery. It's not gonna be that creepy. Like, I'm gonna be fine. I'm not gonna get freaked out. No, I was so wrong. Reading this book, I get so anxious. Some really cool things about this book is the different formats there are, because basically, Pippa's doing this investigation for her senior project. She chose for her senior project to kind of talk about how social media how social media affected the investigation of this disappearance/murder case that happened about 5-ish years ago. However, she's not really talking about that. Like, for the sake of the school project, she's saying she's going about it for like a journalism reason. She's very much just is intrigued about what happened, and she's investigating the case. She happens to be teaming up with the brother of the suspected murderer. 5 years ago, this really popular girl kind of just disappeared out of nowhere, and her boyfriend was kind of the main suspect, and then he killed himself. So Pip teams up with his little brother to solve this case. This is a really long tangent because I'm pretty sure I was talking about the mixed formatting, which I will get back to. So the reason why there's mixed format is because it is for a senior project, so she has a bunch of different like emails or audio transcripts, stuff like that, text messages. One of my favorite things, if I can find it, that was actually pretty quick, is this like map she draws of the town and kind of like all the points that are important for the night that the girl disappeared. I'm liking it so far, but it makes me so nervous that sometimes like I don't want to pick it up and read it. I'm excited to keep reading it though. Sure if this angle is good or not, but the show must go on. I just finished A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I don't even know where to start with this. Okay, I really liked the mystery of this book. Like, I think it was set up really well, and then like the way information is revealed is really fun and interesting. But I was not expecting that ending. I'm gonna be super honest. Very good mystery wise, but it's not gonna get like a 5 stars from me for a couple reasons. It just made me super anxious the whole time because Pippa is absolutely ridiculous and throws herself in every single dangerous situation possible. Like, there's no point in the book where she's like, let me do some, well, there's one point in the book where she's like, oh, I'm gonna do the safe thing, but like, after that, it's like, let me do every, like, possible thing that could put myself in danger. Anxiety the whole time for her. The other reason it's like not gonna get that last star is because in the story, Pippa's applying for college. She's sending out college applications, but she has to write this personal essay and she's like struggling on it the whole time. And this isn't really a spoiler because it's not a huge point in this book. If I were gonna give you a spoiler, I would tell you who done it, you know? But anyways, she's struggling with this personal essay because she doesn't really know who she is. And I think that there was a lot of potential with that storyline. Like, obviously it's not the main plot, but it was definitely a subplot. And I think it had a lot of potential. And I think that it just got wrapped up a little too quickly and neatly. I love Robbie in this book. I can't even, like, he is so sweet and so understanding. In terms of it being the first book in a series, I think it ends up and it like wraps up so nicely that like I don't know if I feel the need to read the other books. This gets a 4 stars because it's a really great book, but I don't know how compelled I am currently to read the other books in the series. I feel like in terms of a young adult, it was really terrifying. There was a lot of really dark things that are discussed in this book, and there's not as much like character growth, I would say. I think Holly Jackson really tries to have that character growth with Pippa. It just doesn't do it very well, which kind of sucks because I know like a lot of people really loved this trilogy. Like, I've heard a lot of really, really good things about it. So maybe the second and third book are better. Let me know if you're watching this and you've read this trilogy, if the second and third book are worth reading, or if this one's just the best out of the series. The next book I'm going to be reading for this video, the next series I'm going to start, is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. Now, this is technically a reread, but it's been a while. This is a young adult fantasy, I believe. Magical type vibes here. Anywho, I will see you when I start Caraval, or when I have updates. it's been a long time since I've gotten back to this video. It's like taking me months to record this video. It is literally January now. I finally started Caraval. Yeah, it's just like a beautiful, well-written story. Like just everything, every word works to build this magical world that Stephanie Garber creates. I think I already told you guys what it's about, but I can't quite remember. So it's about Donatella and Scarlet. They are sisters and they go to Caraval together, which is a kind of like a carnival, like a magical carnival held by this magical man named Legend. And almost every year he holds this thing called Caraval where people from around the world come to either play in a game and they get a prize at the end or watch the game. This year, Scarlet decides to play because the prize at the end is one wish. Well, that's how she decides to play because finding her sister is the game. I don't know if I'm explaining this well at all. Hopefully I am. I have the hardcover, so I took the cover off because I'm not a psycho. I'm 221 pages in and it's on day 4 of Caraval. She has 5 days to find her sister in order to win, well, not to win the game, but to find her sister, which also happens to win the game. I feel like this is the kind of book that you need to read more than once just because there is just so much that happens throughout this story that I feel like you can definitely get lost in all the details and all the clues and all the action, and you don't really pick out some of these important moments. I'm definitely glad that I'm rereading this one. I just love the way Stephanie Garber writes and creates her story. Like, I love that every emotion has a color or a scent or a taste to go with it. And it's not even emotions, it can be states of being. Like, she talks about how death is the color purple, and I love that we get these kind of descriptions because it really, in a story that is so fantastical and out of this world, it really helps ground you as a reader into understanding like the emotions of these characters, even when they're going through something that's supernatural or phenomenal, you know? I'm really loving it so far. I just think that it's such an interesting story, and I think in terms of it being like a fantasy, I don't know if I would obviously it's like a fantasy, but it's more like it feels like a fairy tale type of fantasy. I have one tab in here because the quote, "That look in his eyes was back as if he wanted her to be his undoing." Excuse me? That's it. The next update should be me finishing it because I definitely need to finish this book. First of all, there's probably gonna be a lot of background noises because the landscapers are outside and my brothers are literally in the next room screaming and yelling. So, very loud environment right now. But I have an update because I finished Caraval last night in like the middle of the night. Do you hear that? That was my brother screaming. Anywho, I finished Caraval last night. I really like this book. However, it can be so confusing at the end there just because you have kind of like an unreliable narrator near the end because you don't know whether what's happening is like real or the game, and so it can be really confusing. And like, I'm sure it's not the same for everybody, but it was definitely for me. Like, I just had a hard time following along, and sometimes I had to go back and reread. So like, I definitely would say that this book is like one that you should reread in order to like kind of fully grasp the story, because this is my second time reading it. The first time I read this, I gave it 5 stars. I think I'm actually gonna be rating it like 4 stars, maybe 4.5. The world is so cool and interesting. Like, I would love to participate in Carval. You know when they ask like, oh, what world would you want to dive into? This one. This one for sure. I just think it's so fun. I think the magic is really cool and interesting, and I think she explains the magic very well. I just think near the end it could get kind of confusing. And I loved Scarlett and Tella's relationship just because as an older sister I could really sympathize. Or is it empathize? Either one of those, I'm not sure. I could really relate to Scarlett. I really enjoyed it though, and I would highly recommend this. I'm definitely going to continue on in this series. The last book I'm going to be reading for this video is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. Personally, I haven't read any of her books, but I'm very excited to dive into this book. I love these chapter headings. Hopefully that zooms in nicely, but obviously it gives me a hint that, you know, it's about possibly roller coasters and or amusement park. I also like literally opened it up and the first thing I saw was, of course I can't open it up now. The first thing I saw was a playlist. Ever since I read Maybe Someday, I have loved the idea of having a playlist with music for the book you're reading. Also, I just like really love this cover. It is so cute and pretty. I'm gonna get started on this one. It's like 436 pages. That does not, when I picked this up, it did not seem that long, but that's a pretty long book. I'm gonna start this book and I will let you guys know what I think. Ignore my voice, I'm a little sick. Let's talk about this. Same video. In this one video, I have been sick twice. Listen, I get that this has been like a long period of time, okay? And I think the first time I got sick was like, was it the beginning of December? I feel like it was the beginning of December. Okay, it's the beginning of January and I'm sick again. I'm here to update you about The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. I am 222 pages in, there's like 430 something pages. I like it, I'm not loving it. Let's talk about what it's about. So, Rowan, boss. His family owns Dreamland, which is an amusement park, which in my mind is like Disneyland basically. Rowan's family, that's his. His grandfather recently passed away, and in order to like get his inheritance, he has to like kind of complete this goal that his grandpa set out for him. And Zara works for Rowan. She works at Dreamland. They kind of have like a run-in with each other, and it just kind of goes from there. It's a grumpy sunshine romance. Rowan is very, very grumpy man. Zara's like a little ball of sun. That being said, it's kind of like one of those cliche grumpy romances. Like, it feels very, I don't want to say cringy, but like sometimes I'm like, I feel like I've read those words before in a different book. I'm enjoying the concept. It's like sometimes I'm enjoying the banter and then sometimes I absolutely hate it. And I feel like that's kind of how I feel about this book in general. Not that I hate it, but like I sometimes I'm like really love it and I'm like giggling and kicking my feet. And then other times I'm like, this is so dumb, or like this has been done before, you know what I mean? I feel like we're finally getting to a point where I'm liking the romance more than I'm hating it. Like, there's a scene in here where he's teaching her how to bowl. One of my favorite romance tropes. Rowan has 2 brothers and the other 2 books are about each of the brothers. And what I've heard, like what I've read of their characters from this book, I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to keep reading. Definitely like a solid romance. Like, I'm not enjoying my experience. I just feel like it's a little cliche sometimes. Not cringy, cliche. There's a difference. I'm gonna keep reading. I just finished reading The Fine Print by Lauren Asher, and I really, like, when I left off when I was talking to you guys, I think I was saying I wasn't quite sure how I felt about it. Like, some parts I really liked, and then some parts was kind of getting, like, kind of cliche. Yeah, no, the ending totally just, like, bumped this book up for me. I was gonna give it 3 stars, like, in my head the whole time I was giving 3 stars. And then that ending really, like, just tugged on my heart. Like, you can see my reactions. I was tearing up, I was giggling, I loved the end. I loved seeing Rowan develop as a character from being, like, just a really grumpy businessman to really moving past his childhood trauma and learning to love his grandpa's company that he will be taking over, you know what I mean? For me, I wasn't as intrigued by the romance plot and more so by the subplot of Rowan trying to live out his grandfather's wishes, which is why I will be continuing on in the series, because I want to see the other brothers do the same thing. I like what we saw of their characters in this book, and I'm curious to read more about them. Definitely, like, the romance wasn't always doing it for me. Like, it felt in some places really kind of cliche, and, like, even once or twice I found myself cringing a little bit. By the end, I really loved how Lauren Asher combined this romance and this business side of the plot together, and it just meshed so well to the point where I really cared about not only what happens to Rowan and this kind of business deal he had going, but as well as, like, what happened with his relationship with Zara. So that being said, that was the last book for this video, and I thought we'd do a little wrap up, a little wrap around. I started with A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, and I was highly anticipating this, and I think I was definitely let down personally. I liked the mystery, it kept me intrigued, but at some points, like, I just felt that it was pushing the lines of what a YA book is. A lot of the themes in here are very adult, and that's not to say that, like, young adults shouldn't be educated on some of these subjects. It just is a lot to read, especially when you're, like, knowing this is a YA book, you know? And I see a lot of people on BookTube and Instagram, like, kind of celebrating the fact that Holly Jackson pushes these lines. Everyone has a different opinion, but for me it was just, like, not something that I was expecting, and it kind of threw me off. Another issue was I wasn't really loving Pip as a character. Like, I just couldn't connect to her. I don't think I'm going to continue on in the series. I've heard that this is the best out of the trilogy, but if you guys think I should keep reading, I will. As far as it stands right now, I'm probably not going to. And then I read Caraval by Stephanie Garber, and I really, really liked this book. I think I gave it 4 stars just because some points in here can get overly detailed. Stephanie Garber's writing is really, really beautiful. At some points it can be too much, but I really loved how she set up this world and how almost every single description she gave us was to help build this, like, kind of outrageous world that Caraval takes place in, you know? And I just really loved Scarlett as a character. I saw myself in her. I loved her romance with Julian. I thought they were just super cute together. I definitely really like this one, and I'm going to be continuing on in this series. As I just said, the last book I read was The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. I was a little iffy most of the way through, but the last 100 pages or so really pulled this book to a 4 stars for me, and I will be continuing on in this series just because I really love the concept. I really enjoyed reading these first books of new series. I love jumping into a new series just because I love diving into a new world. Let me know what you guys thought. Let me know if there's any other new series that you guys want me to read. Thanks for watching.